gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. So shut your mouth. You know I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Good evening. It's a Friday night special, News of the World, where we talk about what's in the headlines for the next hour. And I'm delighted to see joined, as always, by Lee and by Anne. Good evening, both.
How are you doing, Paul?
Good to see you. And let's start with a coronation. It's coronation weekend, Lee. Are you excited?
Massively. No, I've just been thinking about this because I knew you was going to ask. This kind of splits me down the middle.
Okay.
As in, obviously, we had the episode with you steaming piss last year, declaring you're a royalist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if nobody can remember that, just go back and have a look at it.
It was a classic.
Comedy gold. So yeah, I'm split down the middle. What I do like about it, I mean, if it had been the Queen, I'd have been excited. I don't know why, but I had an affiliation with the Queen.
Yeah.
This, I'm not so excited. But what I do like about it is the fact that we've still got some kind of, albeit papering over the cracks at the moment, we've still got some kind of tradition and pomp about us, call it. However, I've read a lot of stuff on the media and people think it's a little bit distasteful with him riding round in a gold carriage, but that's by the by. The royal family are up there, we are down here. That's the end of story. So am I excited about it? Probably not. Would I be interested in watching it and seeing it? Because I do like when all the military come together and kind of show that, do you know what I mean, that coming together. So yeah, I'm full on fence sitting on this one. I'm kind of interested in it, but I'm not excited about it. And it's not going to mean anything in my day, but I probably will keep an eye on it.
Okay, what about you, Anne? Are you excited? Are you going to be glued to your television?
Yeah, I'll be watching it, definitely. I'm all for the coronation. I like all the pomp and ceremony, and I think it's one of the last vestiges of being British that we can hold on to. And I think when that goes, we're in danger of becoming, well, we're losing identity as it is for a long, long time, and it's going to be the last thing we can hold on to that the world says, that's Britain. So
yeah,
I think, yeah, keep it. And I don't buy all these arguments why we should become a republic, because I keep on saying this. It's like the argument with Brexit, right? So I said when people going on about Brexit, I said, oh, well, you're going to have loads of money suddenly put into your bank account when we leave Europe. If you're thinking that, it's not going to happen. Like if we got rid of the royals, you wouldn't suddenly find there's lots of money and we can get rid of all the food banks and all that. It's not going to happen. So I love having a royal family. I always look, Steve, to China and the Forbidden City. Forbidden City is stunning, beautiful, but there's something dead and cold about it because you haven't got the wonderful imperial family anymore. And those gorgeous clothes and all that. So I'm all for it. Keep hold of it. Let us be the ones that have the history.
It's the first time in 70 years. And, you know, I mean, some people won't see another one again. You know, if you have good health and you've got good luck, you might be here for the next one. There doesn't seem to be a great deal of community, Lee, is probably the best way to describe it. And, you know, you talk about, you know, in the old days, you see these wonderful old bits of footage of people all out in the street with tables up and down the street and everyone having a bit of food and kids all having a great time. Communities died, Lee. It's not there anymore.
It's well, like I put on my social this morning, it seems to me there isn't an in-between anymore. It's 50-50. You've got the older generation who will look at it like the showpiece that it is. You know, they will be in awe of him and awe of the event because they come from, well, coming out of the war and whatnot, the whole country was built upon solidarity, wasn't it? Now, over years, we've diluted that. And I think now you would have probably my age, I would say, is like the cut-off point. You will have the older generation plus some of mine and the people who are interested watching it and really interested. But I think the youngsters they haven't kind of grown up with that, and it hasn't been instilled into them. You know, there hasn't been a big deal made of these things, and like you said, the community's gone. So the people who they would get that feeling from, their peers, they haven't been doing it. So therefore, it's been diluted over years. So I think it'll be a 50-50. You'll get people interested in it, and people will still be down Starbucks in an afternoon getting a coffee, walking the dog. You know, I think.
And any parties around your way? Anyone having a street
Well, this
party?
was I was going to say. I remember the Jubilee of 1977, and all the streets were decked out everywhere with Union Jacks, tables in the street. It was a 100% community affair, and everyone got involved in it. So it's sad not to see that happening now, and it is tragic because really, I am anyway of a generation that you're never going to see all that again. And the 70s wasn't a time of great pulling together, but the thing was the schools and everything were involved in this. Are the schools involved now in the celebrations? Because schools will be all involved in it. And I think people really have to be wary, because once you lose something, you can quickly start to regret it. And I think we'll just be that bland country that people will be struggling to remember what its name is if we give away or everything that signifies who we are.
Go on, Lee.
Just what you've said there, just to pick up on that.
Oh, Lee, your sound's gone. You've gone very quiet, mate. Don't know what you've done to your sound there, mate. Your picture went a bit funny. It's okay now, but your sound's gone.
Can you hear me?
Very quietly. Very, very quiet.
He's doing what he did that time, freezing all the time.
Back in the day, yeah. Yeah, we haven't had a great deal of success with internet tonight. Anne's picture wasn't great, and now Lee's volume's gone down a bit.
What about
Did you
now?
do something to it, Lee?
No, nothing.
We can hear you, so as long as we're quiet, and then when maybe you have to go out and come back in once you've made your point, but just make your point about what you were going to say.
Yeah, so a quick one. Obviously, we mentioned schools there. I mean, back in the day, as we call it, schools would have been all over it. Do you think schools now would be, obviously with the diversity thing?
Something there, and the sounds come straight back on, and now it's deafening. So we've got you. You're
Right,
back.
right. Hang on a minute. Is that okay? Am I speaking all right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Great.
So do you think, obviously with the world that we live in now, it's probably different from what Anne said about the Jubilee and the big kind of education push on it. Do you think the schools now would be afraid to push it too much due to maybe, I don't know, a difference in diversity or offending, as we always talk about on here, offending someone? Because to kind of go with it.
I tell you what, Lee, right? When I look and when you actually look at it, I tell you, the people who love getting involved in this, this what's shameful about the British, I think, is it's the British that either can't be bothered or really arsy about it. Have you ever seen the Pakistanis and the Indians? They love it. They love getting involved, and they were always involved in the parties. They're a big part of it. This is it. When you've got the Pakistani British and you get the Caribbean British and all that, they love it. They love it. It's the people, it's us that are not appreciating what it is. And this is it. So the schools, I can't see anyone being offended. And I'm sure a load of Muslims would love to get involved in it as well. And so I don't think it would be offended. But as you say, it's this fear factor. But sometimes you've got to face your fears and say, I don't care. It's like the police were criticised for having Union Jacks. I'm sorry, they have to swear allegiance to the Crown. Police officers swear an oath. So, of course, we're going to have the Union Jack. And how dare anyone complain about a British force flying the flag? Just go and try that in some other country and say, don't you fly your flag? And see what response you'll get. I mean, let us enjoy for one day.
Yeah, I think we set ourselves aside on the old, you can't show kind of a national kind of, I don't know, come together or, I mean, for instance, look when on a football point, Steve, I mean, can you remember years ago when England were playing in the World Cup and there were pubs that were told to take down, St. George's flag and whatnot because of the communities they were in, because it would be seen as offending people. Yeah. And I think we are the leading nation in that, is the fact that we're not proud of who we are. And we roll over. Like Anne said, if you go to a different country, if I whipped into Turkey tomorrow and said, take that flag down, please, I'm a little bit offended in Turkey, I don't think I'd be around too much longer, do you?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Lots of good points coming in. Blue Rhythm Boy says, I feel Charles has the respect as the Queen did, but it might take more of a turn once his reign is done. Just my opinion. And Doug says, we live in a broken community nowadays. That's the problem, not the coronation. Which again, I would agree with. I think we all agree with. But you get the opportunity to stand up in your house and swear your allegiance to the King, Lee. I'll be doing it. Will you partake in that? Will you feel a bit daft?
Well, I'm actually driving a bus, pal, so unless it falls within maybe me pulling up at a bus stop, and I think the passengers might look at me like I've lost the plot if I start giving it the old. So, yeah, no, I won't be, mate, but, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And are you going to swear allegiance, and would you not?
Yeah, I am. I appreciate. Yeah, I appreciate this wonderful jewel we have called a royal family, and people go, no, they're not popular. Look, throughout history, they've been much, much more unpopular than what they are now. And I like Charles. I do. I like him. And I like Camilla. There's an unpopular view for you, but I like the two of them. I do.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. We always bring different things to the table. And I'm going to hand the floor to Anne now. She brought a couple of really good subject matters to the table. Let's start with Ryan Webb. And who is Ryan Webb?
Well, Ryan Webb, I think he's a Canadian, if I remember rightly. And what he's done, he decided he was going to step up to the mark and more or less do a Piers Morgan, but go further when it comes to self-identification. Now, he's obviously Caucasian. He's obviously male. And he said that he's a lesbian female of colour. And it's caused an absolute kick-off. But actually, it's to me, he's made a point. I can see why people are getting upset about it, but he's not just picking, and this is it, which Piers Morgan wasn't either. Piers Morgan is not against trans people, he's not. But what he's against is all this 100 different genders and all this moon and all this business. So this fella said this, and it's caused a kickoff. But as he said, he said, if I want to identify as a lesbian woman of colour, I can. And it's caused this kickoff. But I think this is what people have got to do. It's like in Canada where the bodybuilder, I can't remember his name, he walked into weightlifting competition, honest to God, he is so thick set, big beard and everything, and he said, I am a woman and I want to take part in this competition. Now, the thing is, the rules say that if anyone defines themselves as being a woman, they can't be questioned on it. So they couldn't say, well, you don't look like you're trying to look like a woman. And he said, I'm a woman. So he went in. He, of course, won every award, the award that was supposed to be there. But the irony was, he knocked a trans woman out of her position that was in the same competition, and she turned around and went, that's not fair. And it's like, wait a minute, what about the women? And, and so Ryan's more or less done that. And this is what's happening now. And you're going to get this. People are going to come forward and say, look, if you've got this rule, I'm going to do it. I can do it if I want to. It's like when they're going on. Do you remember that young man who was saying that he was Filipino, was he, or something? He was, and there was this big outrage. You can't suddenly identify as being Filipino if you're not born there. But I'm sorry, if you can identify as absolutely anything you want to, people are going to show this up, say, no, this is nonsense.
I think he was doing it to fly in the face of the kind of woke brigade that you can kind of choose who you want to be, and it's usually from his side. I think it's usually to garner an advantage in some way, shape, or form. So it detracts from people who are genuinely identifying as a girl or boy, whatever. He's basically throwing it in the face of the lefty kind of liberals and saying, look, well, hang on a minute. If it's okay for her to do it, I'm a white man and I'm now a black woman. And he's basically saying, tell me why I can't be. If anybody can be what they want, why can't a white man do it? And I think his motive behind it, albeit to show them up, is to say, look, it's different when a white man does it. I think
it's not so much that he was doing that. He was trying to show that there's this big argument going on, which is understandable, which never existed in the past, about gender being supreme to sex. Now, of course, people get confused, and I've had this out with people lots of times. They confuse gender with sex. It isn't. Your sex is what you're biologically born. Your gender is fluid. You can be, basically, you can be straight, gay, you can be transgender. That's why we say now transgender and not transsexual, because your gender does fluctuate and can change, but your sex can't. And so what he's drawn attention to the fact is, well, if you can say that suddenly you're a man, you were born a woman, but now you're a man, or vice versa, you're a man who's now a woman, and say that that's reality. Well, what I'm going to say now is that I can change my race, which is a point he's made. Can people change the race? And it asks the question, can you actually change your sex? You might be able to change your gender, but can you change your sex? That's a big debate at the moment.
It's interesting to see just another debate coming out about this particular subject. I was completely unaware of Ryan Webb. I know Lee was as well, but we both went away and had a look. And it's I almost feel like sometimes people do these things to test boundaries, and to push agendas. And it's there's nothing wrong with it. You can't stop it. It's the way of the world. And Ryan Webb is not going to be the first and not going to be the last to do this kind of thing. I'll have to look into this person identifying as a woman with a beard. I mean, again, that just sounds that just sounds crazy.
If you look at him, when you can, I'll try and find his name, but he's a Canadian.
I don't know. Have you ever been for a night out in Blackpool? There's plenty of women with beards.
Well, I will have a look. Today is, of course, Friday, but local elections took place yesterday, Thursday.
Here we are.
Go on.
I've got his name, Avi, A-V-I, Silverberg.
Right. Okay. I'll have a look.
And when you see him, think if you think, oh, she's gorgeous.
I will.
Look at the triceps on her. Oof.
Well, there's somebody for everybody, Lee, as we know. Okay, elections. Did you vote, Lee?
Absolutely not. And
why?
Right, I tell you for why. First and foremost, I tell you, I'll put a strap line on it. There's no point in betting in a horse race that's already been run where you can only choose 2 horses. For me, I went to vote a couple of years back, and I don't mind saying what I'm going to vote in a minute. And it was when there was a big immigration thing going on, and I think there was on the ticket, you get your ticket that you tick a box in. There was no ID required then. So you gave your name, your date of birth, and then you voted. Now, for me, I didn't like what Labour was saying at the time. Certainly didn't like what Conservatives were saying at the time. So the other options were Green Party and Lib Dems. Now, having looked at everything, if you remember it, UKIP were running. Now, I wasn't big into it at that point. I didn't take a great deal of interest, but I looked at a few of their points, and albeit they were a bit wacky, but their core principles I agreed with. So I went there thinking I'm going to put a tick in the UKIP box, knowing full well it's not going to win. So to my surprise, when I got there was only 4 boxes to tick. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. How can we ask for a democracy and a vote if I can't vote who I want to vote for? And the answer was, obviously, they're not running locally. Well, how are we ever going to get anywhere if they're not running locally or there isn't anybody in that party? But for me, what's the point? And I know it's a really crap attitude to have, but I think, what is the point?
No, you're not wrong. But I'd say one thing, Lee, you were voting for Thatcherites if you're voting for UKIP. People out now Thatcherites. That's what you would have done.
And did you vote yesterday?
No, I haven't voted for years, and I feel my mother would absolutely be smacking me across the face now in disgust, because she always drilled in. She said people had to fight for the vote. People had to fight. They lost their life to have to vote. Always vote no matter what. But then many years ago, Steve, I came to the realization and understood something. No, it's not that if you don't vote, you don't have a say. It's the matter of, by not voting, you're making a massive statement. And that is, I don't believe in any of them.
Yeah.
I don't. Now, I'll say what my mum was red hot Labour, or Labour on. So I was brought up in a sort of environment where Conservatives were no chance. Lib Dems I can't stand any of them. But the Labour we have now, once John Smith went, that was it. The Labour became, like I called them, blue Tories. And so I proudly don't vote. And that is a big statement I've made by not doing it.
Okay.
I mean, for me, they can't, if I was to pick a party down the middle as a human, I'd go Green Party all day long. But we all know the Green Party, there isn't a kind of business element to it, and the Green Party are never going to get in there. Let's be totally honest about that.
Got a few seats this time round.
Yeah, but I think that's just people not believing in Conservative or Labour. So it's like, well, shit, who do we pick? Right, that's another team. Like I said, there's only 4 teams ever. So, and it's almost like Anne says, the Labour Party now is just a watered down Tory. You know, it's not a Labour Party as we know it, and it's not for the people, albeit they talk a good game. But I don't know. No, I didn't vote, and I'm not bothered about that in the slightest. But I'll be complaining when the Tories get voted in, so I'm kind of contradicting myself, aren't I?
Obviously, I voted, postal vote. I've signed up for that ages ago. But from my perspective, I always look at it in two separate ways. The local election is my local councillor. It's who represents the ward. It's who represents me. And really, I judge it on how how good a job they do in their period of office, and whether they're approachable, whether they go out and do the hard work, whether they're prepared to come to your door. My councillor is. I've rung my councillor on a couple of occasions in the 15 years that I've lived where I live, and they've made the effort to come out, or they've answered the phone, or they've responded to an email. So for me personally, that person is doing their job. And although I might not agree with some of the things that are happening in my area, I will vote. I will vote for them. And a lot of people, in the Northeast vote Labour. I voted different people at different times. When it comes to the general election, it's become a little bit more like, for me, it's become a little bit more like the USA, America. It's now becoming a popularity contest. And I don't think we're a million miles away from having a celebrity put themselves forward as a candidate, maybe for one of the main parties. That could be the next road we go down.
Well, just on that, do you remember the guy? What's his bloody name? Lawrence Fox.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Are you familiar with him? I believe has he not started a party or?
Probably.
He tried to, but it went to vote. Oh, he's an idiot. He's an absolute idiot.
Well, he got you've never seen him on TV since, have you? What was he in?
Oh, he's on it's on GBN News, being an absolute idiot as he always is. He is an out and out. I mean, this is someone that's just, and it's annoying. He's just out now. It's idiotic. So his party got nowhere.
I think
again, these parties set up it costs money to do it, and the policies are pointless. And I think Donald has nailed it in the chat. Politics is broken, nothing between the parties, which is basically what I think the panel has said. Something I didn't run past you both before we came on was the Kremlin attack. That was interesting this week. Have you seen it, Lee? Have you seen it, Anne? The Kremlin attack?
I heard about it, yeah.
Just a drone attack.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you make of that? Because wow. I mean, what surprised me was something, no matter how small, could get close enough to the Kremlin, and it's on fire. The pictures that we saw, it was on fire where it hit. Of course, the rhetoric comes out from Putin that it's an attack on his life by the Ukrainians. It's probably somebody local, isn't it? Who's just sick to death of him.
Yeah, it's probably somebody very local, or even somebody on the inside, shall we say, who has maybe thought this may be my chance, to make a bit of history. But that's always surprised me with. Sorry, Anne, go on.
No, I was just going to say, why are you presuming that it was an outsider, that it was a job, as in maybe the Russians wanted to stir up some hatred against the Ukrainians? So what better way to do it than our Kremlin has been attacked?
Well,
because
exactly.
a lot of Russians are not happy. So maybe it was what do they call a white flag instance?
Mm-hmm.
Possibly the red herring.
It was certainly a red herring for me. I mean, there's no doubt that had nothing to do with the Ukrainians. I genuinely feel that was an inside job. And I mean, if you're gonna attempt an assassination on him, you'd think of better ways to do it, I'm sure, than flying a drone into his
They
roof.
obviously had better Wi-Fi than what we've got tonight to do that. It's a quick one. One of our first shows, mate, if you remember, we kind of spoke about, oh my God, this big world war with Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a good year on now. When we basically thought the world was going to end or everyone could be under attack, or I did. I thought, oh Christ, here we go. I mean, we're a year into it now, and really, what has he done? I mean, obviously, there's been some devastation. I'm not dumbing that down, but for a super force like Russia, surely that should have been over in weeks. And we're a year on, and every now and then he'll take a pot shot at a city. So I think, I mean, obviously they're calling it the propaganda war, aren't they? If you listen into all that. I mean, what do you feel about it a year on?
I'm disappointed that it's still going on. I'm disappointed in the way that some of the countries have reacted. I think it's probably made for a safer Europe in the sense that more of them, more countries. Another countries join NATO, but more countries are looking to join NATO. I think it'll probably make us, despite us being out of Europe, it's probably made a more unified Europe in that sense. With the NATO countries coming together. But I'm still I'm more of a belief now than I was when it all kicked off. War is about one thing, and it's about money, and it's about people making money out of things like weapons. Yeah. And for me, that's disappointing, and it's upsetting. That it's now not front page news anymore. It's now not your main lead on the networks because. Does it make any difference? The people who are dying now are just as important as the people who died on the first day of war.
It seems to be almost accepted, doesn't it? Like, oh, that's going on over there.
And it was going on, I think, I'm pretty sure Anne made the point when we first talked about it, and correct us if I'm wrong, Anne, that this war hasn't just started. It had been going on for years. I think you said that, Anne.
Yeah. And the thing is, you've got to be also careful. I mean, I hope that it is the thing that's going to fizzle out. But don't forget, during the Second World War, the Germans, the Nazi Party, they were in for quite a while before it actually really kicked off that style. So a year is nothing in a time span, but hopefully it will resolve itself because we don't want all this Western out.
We've got just on the Ukraine front, I've actually noticed in Lancaster, we've actually got quite a lot of refugees, if you want to call them, or people that have like in the local hotels. And they've, fair play to them, the people around here. Everyone I've met, I know families that have taken them in, with little kids and whatnot. So the local area is doing their best. I mean, I got speaking to 2 Ukrainian ladies, albeit in broken English, and talking to them about Shakhtar Donetsk and Dynamo Kiev. But I kind of got out of them that they were over here for a 3-month period minimum. They were in a hotel. I think they had the 2 kids. And they were in the local college learning English, and trying to do a few courses. So, fair play.
See, the thing is, though, Lee, which I said last time, what was shocking about Ukraine was you were seeing people leaving, but the vast majority looked like healthy men. And the last thing you want to happen when there's a war going on is the able-bodied males suddenly leaving the country because they're expecting then other countries to join in and sacrifice their soldiers. That's the big difference between the past and now. During the Second World War, everyone had to, you couldn't go run into another country. It just wasn't an option, and people didn't even think about doing that unless you were in Northern Ireland, and a lot of them jumped over to the border and were suddenly Southern Irish. That happened, when they thought they were going to be conscripted into it. But, people just got down to it, and that's the thing. But now people just don't have the same stamina that they used to have.
It doesn't seem to call it a war. Obviously, Russia hold the upper hand in the muscle stakes, shall we call it. I'm surprised that whether it be from Ukraine or whether it be from a neighbouring country, that there's actually been no retaliation towards Russia, actually in the Russian cities.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we call it a war. When England fought Germany or the rest of the world, it was to and fro, wasn't it? So I wouldn't call it a war in Ukraine. It's pretty much just an attack, isn't it? Because they're
a sustained attack.
Yeah, it's something which, you know, as I say, I'm surprised that we're still in this position. You know, as you say, over a year and a half later, probably now, when we're still in the same position. It's not great, you know, and let's hope it comes to an end sooner rather than later. The Stone of Destiny was another topic that Anne brought to the table. Tell us about this, Anne.
The Stone of Scone. But I've always
the Stone of Scone.
Yeah, I always found that interesting because I remember as a small child in school, I had an argument, one of my first arguments with the teacher, and she was saying that it was you know, it was originally in Scotland. I said no, said it was originally. I said Ireland had it. I said Ireland took possession of that first. What it is, the legend is, it was the stone that Jacob. Have you ever heard of Jacob's ladder in the Bible? He rested his head, for people who don't know, on this stone and went to sleep. He used it as a pillow, and then he saw this huge. It's called a ladder, but it was really a huge staircase going into heaven, and angels were coming up and down, descending and going up these stairways. Anyway, that's what it's alleged to be. But we know that it definitely got into the hands of the Scottish, but we don't know whether it actually was the original Jacob's stone that he rests his head on. But this is the thing that every British, or in the past English, because Britain wasn't a thing when it was first used, and it was stolen from the Scottish, because you had to have that to make a coronation valid. Now, the strange thing is, when you look at the history, is it actually the real Stone of Scone? Because its descriptions in the past are remarkably different from what we see now. So is every monarch we've had been falsely crowned because it's the wrong stone? Because the theory is, when the Scottish knew the British were coming to invade Scotland, they hid it. And they hid it that well that they can't remember where they hid it. That kind of thing. They can't remember where they put it.
They've been on the whiskey the night before. The old Scottish won't remember it.
Yeah. But if that's true, that means no monarch is rightfully been crowned king or queen of this country or this kingdom, because you need the original Stone of Destiny for it to be valid. But it's definitely.
What do you think of that, Lee? Do you think this is Anne trying to shut down my monarchy?
I think when she was on about Jacob's ladder and stones, I think Jacob was probably stoned when he seen this ladder. I mean, if that's true, then basically what you're saying is the whole country's a shaman.
Well, the thing is, right, strange enough, the stone that they have now, oddly enough, there's rocks in Scotland that are made of exactly the same material, but you can't find.
How have you found out about all this shit? This is what.
That's fascinating. I have to say, it starts as a kid when I had that argument with it, and I've always been fascinated by the Bible as well, the history of the Israelites and all this business. So you get to know it that, but definitely, I think most people would say it's not the genuine one, and that does cause problems, because according to the faith around monks, because don't forget, there's nothing people forget. A coronation is a religious ceremony. It's religious. In other words, God is putting them there. God is it's all God doing this. So if you haven't got the right stone, which they're supposed to have, but I can't find out who actually came. It was the Scottish kings that used to be first crowned on it. And the English then wanted it. So
sorry, I'll go on.
But it doesn't, because I mean, if it's the same as the rocks in Scotland, you can guarantee, but it doesn't even look at anything the same as the descriptions as it was described centuries ago. They give you a completely different version of it.
There's going to be loads
So
of people.
they are sorry to disappoint me, Steve, but they might all be imposters, these kings and queens we've got.
They may well be, yes, I am. I'll keep an eye on that 100%. I'm going to keep an eye on the skies as well, because according to the Daily Mail this week, aliens could contact Earth by 2029, according to scientists tracking a NASA probe that's traveling through space, which is 27 light years away. Scientists actually believe that aliens may have intercepted a signal which was sent to the probe in 2002. So if it was aliens, they might have returned a signal which will reach Earth by 2029. So not long to wait before we get contact, Lee.
That's definitely the shittest Wi-Fi we've ever had, then, isn't it? that's like BT dial-up, like Anne's got.
Is there life out there, Lee? Is there life out there?
I would like to believe yes. I think it'd be amazing. I mean, who's to say we're not aliens? Realistically, who's to say we're not a chip off another planet somewhere in some weird atmosphere and we're the aliens? You never know, do you? I think, no, I just know what it'd be lovely if there was, but don't know. Can you see it?
I do believe in aliens. I do think I think it's very arrogant for us to think that we're the only people here. And when you look in the sky, if the sky's a real thing,
exactly.
I've never been up there to see otherwise. But I mean, the sky itself has got a universe and beyond. So I think it would be very arrogant for us to say that we were the only life form. But as yet, we've had no proof.
Look at ET. He went home. He's gone somewhere. I don't know where he's gone, but he's gone home.
Exactly. Anne, what's your thoughts on life on another planet?
I think, as most people say, look, it's so immense, the universe, and we're only seeing, they reckon, this is really a tiny part of it. Now, this is what puts it into perspective for you. When they worked out what shape the universe was, or is, it's flat. It's completely flat. Now, now, does that mean the universe is really flat, or does it mean that we're only seeing, you know how when you're walking down the road to you it looks flat, but if you look if you could see way in the distance and the horizon, you'd see that it was curved. When you think of what we can already see, which is immense, we could only be seeing a tiny fraction of how big the universe is. So there's got to be something out there. But this is the problem, Steve, right? They know that everywhere they look, there's silence. There's no sign that there's any intelligent life out there. And then when you examine us on the earth and how we came about, the fact is, if it does happen, and it most probably is out there, we are going to be such a rare event. So rare, because how many billions of animals are on this planet? There's billions. And yet only one of them evolved to the standards we have, where we can look out into space and think and examine it. Only one, and that was by mere chance that happened. So there most probably is life out there, but it's most probably totally unaware that we're around and we'll never meet because of course there's distances. But never say never. It might be just that you've got this Fermi paradox happening, which tries to explain why we don't hear them. And one of the theories, which is actually quite scary, the dark forest, is that where we're putting advertisements out there, here we are. All the other alien life is hiding. They're keeping themselves hidden. They're there. They can see us. They can see each other. Or they know each other's around, but they're hiding. So maybe it's a good idea to stop sending out signals out there if everyone else is hiding. But it's the big question, is the big mystery is, why aren't we seeing something? Because it's that big, there must be something. There must be.
Just a quick one. I was thinking about aliens then. I had an instant thought of ET, and there's a film, one of my favourite films as a kid. I'll still try and watch it now every year. Flight of the Navigator. Have you seen it?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, the kid where he goes out, 1977. Yeah.
What a film.
It is a classic.
It's a feel-good film.
Yeah. You'll never beat E.T., though. That's the best alien film ever. I love that film. That's amazing. But yeah, there's going to be something out there, but most probably the chances are we'll never meet them. And as they say, when you become intelligent, you're building the road to your own extinction. because too much success ends with you can't survive.
Yeah, of course.
Lee, have you brought any topics to the table tonight?
We're going to speak about the voting, mate, to be honest. What else we got? Right, Joe Biden.
Oh, yes.
Just while we're on it.
Lovely man. I've
been sat quietly watching this absolute buffoon. And I'm not his biggest fan anyway. He's not my type of person. But what I have noticed, he seems to just, his little visit to Ireland put a nasty taste in my mouth because he was basically telling the English to step up with the kind of peace in Ireland. So I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you've come over here playing you're a big Irish person and you've got Irish ancestry. Just because his mum went for a pint once in Ireland, all of a sudden he had Irish ancestry. But he kind of, do you remember that? There was kind of an undertone to his chucking out on England saying the UK need to step up. And I'm like, really? What are you doing? So I was a bit distasteful. He's been running his mouth off again in England, hasn't he?
Do you think that's because at the funeral of the Queen, he was sitting with a third world country rather than being up front?
I don't know. This kid, for starters, for him to be a president, we all know his history. What was it? Non-payment of taxes, tax fraud. So he seems to jump on his high horse quite a lot. And I'm just not his biggest fan. And some of the stuff he says is either very clever to garner a reaction, or he genuinely doesn't think about what he's saying or about who he's. I don't
think he knows what he's saying. I think, the footage of him walking in and following directions, turn left, turn right, was a bit concerning for me.
Yeah, he does look a frail man, doesn't he?
I don't think he'd survive another term.
Well, when he took over, there was, again, conspiracy theorists. They thought that he would be the figurehead. I remember we spoke about this on one of the first few shows.
Yeah,
he would be the figurehead for a year or two to get in. And I think his number two, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, is a lady. She's of black origin. The conspiracy theorists at the time suggested that she may take over from him. So it was almost like a trainee role, but he would figurehead it at first. We haven't seen anything like that. So I think that's proven false. But I'm same as you, mate. He can't go on much longer. He looks a frail man.
And
what's your thoughts on Sleepy Joe?
But no, I don't have many thoughts. I thought that he was a bit rude over the Irish situation. He had no right to do that, and should keep his nose out of it. Because America's not very good at relations with other places, are they? But I'm of the opinion. I never look, and I said this on Talk TV in the comments when they were going on about it. I said, look, why are you bothering about what's going on in America or who the Americans have got? We've got enough problems of our own. I said, look at what we've got politically, never mind what they've got politically. So, to me, I don't look unless it's someone that's causing real problems, where him just being rude, which he was rude, I don't think there's I suppose it's a big deal of who he is. But he hasn't got that. No matter whether you detest them or not, all the others had personality. He seems very bland to me. Very bland. He's the John Major, isn't he, of American president?
He is. He definitely wears beige corduroy pants. With muscle socks, I think.
Kamala Harris, that's who you were thinking of. Thanks, Andrew. For that. Mr. Sifter says, I'm not American, but I wouldn't mind seeing Obama back in the hot seat. Is Biden as frail as Allardyce? FMO, probably. DMAO. That was hilarious, that. But we'll keep that. We do keep that for the football podcast. The World Health Organization have said that COVID is over, Lee. I've spoken to at least 8 people in the last 2 weeks who've been hit badly with COVID, laid them out for 3 days, 4 days. I don't think COVID's over. Do you?
Is COVID over? I think the hype and the media of it all is over, because then, like anything, they need to move on to something else to be the topic for that week, to scaremonger that week, to garner some more control or to get some more control. However, the strain of this COVID, no, it hasn't gone away. Because how is it going to go away? It doesn't just peter out. In the short time scale we've had it, if you look at, the dynamics of it, it doesn't just disappear. Now, supposedly the majority of people have had vaccinations. So I don't know, mate. For me, I don't think it was COVID all along. I think it's a strain. It was termed COVID because it was a serious strain of a terrible illness, i.e. flu. I was always the belief it was basically flu on steroids. Now, the COVID side of things come with the lockdowns and the scaremongering, but there's no denying that there is something there, obviously. But personally, I think it was a bad strain of flu, a devastating one, call it. Sorry, not a bad strain. That's not paying the respect it deserves. But I don't think it was a world killer disease, put it that way.
Anne, what's your thoughts?
Oh, do you know what? You can't believe it. The World Health Organization says. I mean, we were lied to. We know we were lied to, and this government proved that we've been lied to. So I take no notice of what to say, but I think they've got way too much power.
I think they're saying that, so they've probably got something else in the pipeline for another 6 months, i.e. a COVID-2, call it, or whatever.
Yeah. Or if we go into another lockdown, I think what it was scary to see just how easy it was to bring the whole world to a standstill. That was frightening. Well, that was very, very frightening.
Tester for control, they say, not a compliance test.
Yeah, I think so.
They reckon, but it's cost a lot of people their not only lives, but their livelihoods, their families, their mental health,
the sanity.
Yeah, and I think that was the killer COVID for me. What it did at people, putting them under that lock and key.
Because I remember walking down the road, it was weird when it first started. And you remember they didn't know whether you just dropped dead on the spot when you caught and all that.
Yeah.
And
we got those images from China, didn't we, Anne? Where people were like shaking on the street and then getting bundled in the back of a van. That was the first thing that we ever saw.
It was horrible.
It was, yeah.
But when you went out, it was like there were no cars, nothing. And you'd be walking down, this is what got me, this is when I thought there's something really off about this, not right, is I suddenly saw two police officers walking down the road. And I thought, are they watching to see us out the house? And what scared me more, I thought, don't tell me that the police are going to be used, which they eventually were, to control people. I thought that's not what they're there for. In that sense, they're not supposed to be controlling people for Parliament or the World Health Organization, which is what they did. And I thought that was absolutely scary. One end like that, you get the army, you don't get the police to do it. But yeah, it was strange. I don't ever want to see that happening again. I just don't wait it, because we'll never know now whether, if it had been herd immunity, that would have worked, where people just allowed to catch it, because that's how they got rid of a lot. Chickenpox, they reckon chickenpox was because the inoculation went out. Was it chickenpox or was it measles? Measles, wasn't it?
Measles,
But the fact is, they know that actually before that came out, we were getting immune to it. And we were actually eradicating ourselves. So the question is always there, would we have actually got rid of this by nature instead of sticking needles into us and all this business?
On this COVID thing, I don't know. When it first came out, you kept getting totals every day of the death tollies, and it was almost like a showpiece every morning, wasn't it? Distasteful, like the death rate is this, that, and the other. For 2 years, no one died of bronchitis, flu, pneumonia. So if you pool together all those totals, I think on average the UK, 80,000, maybe even more, I can't remember, 80,000 deaths per year of respiratory related illnesses. All those figures disappeared overnight, and they all got COVID put on their death.
Oh yeah.
No, and that's a big thing at the moment with people. They're now coming back to it, saying, "Well, actually, did my mum die of COVID, or what?" Let's kind of get some truth. And I think that's what eventually people started to think, all right. So people woke up, basically, didn't they? Yeah. But for those, I mean, I remember going in the Spar shop one night, and I kind of felt a bit guilty for doing it. There was a guy there, obviously, he was going on about COVID, and I think I'd kind of said something similar. And he went, my mum's just died of COVID, or my mum died of COVID. And I thought I could have gone at him, and, obviously it's a bad time to do it. But what I felt like saying inside of me was, You don't know what your mum's died of. As in, it could be anything. But at that time, it seemed to be everything going on every death certificate was COVID. So...
But they were saying that at the time, but I know one of my neighbours, that's why I got the 2 injections and refused to have any more. I said, if there's any more of this, I'm not getting it. But she suddenly went, remember, I saw her walking my dog one night, and I sort of said, oh shit, I've caught this COVID thing. 2 days later, a day later, there's an ambulance there. Then suddenly I go to knock on the door to check on her. She's dead. And that's what made me think, oh my God, you know, there was nothing wrong with the woman and something she died. So there was definitely something there, but it was the way people were reacting. And you know what got me? The young couldn't give a damn. The ones that were all paranoid were the old. And I remember in Tesco, I was walking around and I went up to, you had to go down the aisle this way, that way, all arrows on the floor. And I went the wrong way. This old fella, he must have been in his 80s. And I remember him standing there. And he went, you're going the wrong way. And I thought, Jesus Christ, I thought, what are you worried about? And God forgive me for saying that. But I thought, no, what the hell? That's how paranoid it was. And it was the old people that would be moving away from you. I mean, I'm old myself, but I thought, this is just stupid.
To me, that's one of the biggest things, what you've described there. That's what really... I don't know, it made me question a lot because I was seeing what it was doing to old people. It was isolating them. And even now, we're 2 or 3 years on and 42 million vaccines in your arm later. The effect it's having on old people is still there. They're still running around with masks on, wanting to hide from people. So it's a long-term effect that if it was lies or it wasn't lies, it's had its required effect. And I don't like what it's done at the people who are vulnerable because they're running around hiding. And that's I mean, to me, it means nothing to me. But seeing the old people does weigh on my mind a bit. And I feel like saying to them, just take it all off. You know, enjoy life. Don't worry about running around the corner. If you're gonna fucking die, you're gonna die. You know, it's sad to see.
Yeah, definitely is. Last topic for tonight. Police officers are threatening to sue their force after bosses introduced new guidelines which could force them to shave off beards and moustaches. Police Scotland is planning to introduce a new clean-shaven policy for frontline officers, meaning hundreds of staff will have to lose their facial hair by the end of the month. I mean, with the world collapsing around us, is this really very important, whether a police officer has a shave or not? But do you think this should be without a beard, as a beard manly?
So I remember... Oh, bloody hell, when was it? So even in my fire brigade days, just prior to that, you had to be clean shaven. Now, part of that was to wear the breathing apparatus, you know, because it needs to form a seal. I remember when you applied for the police, you had to be clean shaven. There was no tattoos on show. So, An'll know more about this. You couldn't. So if you was wearing a short sleeve shirt, all tattoos had to be hidden. And that was still in kind of force when I was looking at joining these organisations. Subsequently, what we're doing is it's the wokies turning back in on themselves. We've allowed everything, you know, to come into work. All kind of guidelines and restrictions have been relaxed and said, be who you want to be. And now we want to turn it back on its head. But the unfortunate thing is, because you've let all the chickens out in the yard, how are you going to bring them back? I mean, I would say young men these days of a certain age, they've all got facial hair. There's not many that are clean shaven. You know, because it is the kind of the look, and I always hated being clean shaven because I've come out in spots. So when it kind of become semi-fashionable to have facial hair, I welcomed it. I'll never go back because it hides a multitude of sins, obviously. Yeah. But I don't think they can bring that back, mate. No.
What's your thoughts, Sam?
Well, give you a surprise here. It's actually the rules that's supposed to be clean shaven. I remember that when I was in the police, and I've worked for the police for over 10 years, but some of them used to get pulled, having beards, and then you'd suddenly see them with these huge beards down to the waist, practically. But you see, the thing with police, I remember Bernard Hogan, how when he was chief constable, he was threatening. He said, if I see any more tattoos on show, he said, you'll all be wearing long sleeves, and he said, if you've got them on your hands, you'll be wearing gloves. He said, like some of the Met officers had to. He was fuming because you'd see big tattoos all around the neck and all this. And people said, well, it's human rights. But the thing is, the argument was that if you're going into that kind of job, you've got to look presentable and you've got to inspire confidence. Everything about the police, it went too far, really. Everything about the police was based on looks, how you looked. But yeah, it used to be unfair because you'd see some of the women police officers with the most weird hairstyles going. And you'd think, well, why can they get away with that when the men can't? But they can. They can tell you if they want clean shaven. Now, they didn't enforce it. It was, I remember this was bizarre, this one fella, chief superintendent, and he came down and this young officer was starting to grow a beard, you could tell. And he went, who did you ask permission to grow that beard? And he asked permission, and he was giving all this. He had a great fanny on his face. And I looked up at him and said, you've got a bit of a nerve, haven't you? I said, what's on your mush? I said, that thing you've got grown on you. Because I didn't give a damn. I used to pull them up at it. But yet you can't be actually put on paper if they don't ask permission. Yeah. But usually the trend is, in reality, the trend is the police forces don't give a damn, the majority of them. They just let them grow the beards and they let them have the tattoos. As long as the tattoos aren't stupid. If they start putting them on the face, then they take action against it. But I think it's up to the police officer. I mean, is it offensive to see a police officer with a beard? No. Is it offensive if they're wearing a tattoo, which they cover up? No. But I say if they start putting on the face or anything like that, then you think, oh no, that looks wrong. That doesn't look right.
Okay, great stuff. As always, that hour flies over. Enjoyable hour, talking about something completely different from Newcastle United. Don't forget, Anne has a channel. Get yourself over to Anne's channel and subscribe. Always got some good content and always a good reaction video or 10 on there. Which
that is, isn't it?
For different situations with regards to YouTube, which we tend not to cover on this channel anymore, but I do watch some of it with interest, I've got to be honest. Lee, anything you would like to promote, sir?
Just love and light.
Good stuff.
How's your girlfriend getting on your dragon?
Do you know, she's had a couple of funny days, you know. I think she's in a bad mood with me.
Yeah, you're not treating her right.
Every now and then, she'll just, I'll get that look and she'll just stay in.
She wants to go and see the Coronation. She wants to join in the Coronation. Take her with you. Sit on your shoulder.
More than well. Do you know what she does now? This in anybody who owns bearded dragons and whatnot. So during the winter, we'd have the fire on. But she's a nosy little bitch, so she wants to be around humans. She doesn't want to be sat right there, but she likes to know what's going on. She's now found a way to come all the way down the stairs, and I put a purple cushion in front of the fire. So every now and then I'll just open the door and I'll be making my breakfast or something, and she'll just appear on the cushion, having come from upstairs herself. And she sits and watches the news.
Brilliant.
Or if there's a game of football on, she'll just be like, oh my God, I'm sure she thinks it's food. Fucking hilarious.
You'll have to get the dragon on. You'll have to get the dragon on one week.
Yeah,
we'll get her on.
Great stuff. All right. Well, as always, Anne, Lee, thanks very much. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Glad you enjoyed it. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A big shout out to all our sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you enjoy the show, please hit the little thumb under the video and like the video. Click share to share to your other social media, or subscribe. It's free and we do 7 shows a week. If you want to become a member, you can click join underneath this video. There are different packages to suit all different pockets. And if you want to become a cult member, then put your smartphone over the QR code. It'll take you straight there to the website, which is nufcmatters.com. If you go in via the website, just click membership pack. What do you get? for your money. You get a pen, you get a cup, you get a membership card and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, we are available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this show. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you'll find the matchday bucket. You can make a virtual donation today. We've also got some events coming up over the next couple of months. An evening with Peter Beardsley at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com, or go to Voucher and get a 40% discount. Our end of season due is the 27th of May at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are a tenner from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Gavin Peacock takes place on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets from nufcmatters.com for that event. And the following night, Gavin will be at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Go to their website for ticket information. We've got a vast range of t-shirts, merchandise and memorabilia available at our website. The Isaac t-shirt is doing well. Go to nufcmatters.com to buy one today.